Today's episode of Entertainment Drive-Thru is brought to you by Audible.com. Audible.com has over 180,000 audiobooks and audio products. Get your free audiobook of your choice at audibletrial.com/edrivethru.
Welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. Today's special is Steve Vai, legendary guitarist.
Quiet on the set.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage.
Hello, welcome to Entertainment Drive-Thru. I'm Anna, with me is my co-host Dan. Today we have a legendary guitarist. He's sold over 15 million records, he has 3 Grammys, and has toured the world as a solo artist as a member of G3 and with Frank Zappa and bands such as Alcatraz, the David Lee Roth Band, and Whitesnake. He's also an amazing audio producer, and he has his own independent record label. Now his latest work includes a DVD and CD of Stillness in Motion, and you can also go to his Vai Academy. Let's welcome, joining us is the one, the only Steve Vai!
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Hey.
I hope the audience
nice
is listening because this is going to be fucking awesome.
I hope I can live up to that intro. Thank you.
Well, how are you today?
I'm doing great.
Excellent. Well, first things first, as we ask at the beginning of every Entertainment Drive-Thru interview, tell us about you. How did you get started as a musician?
Well, it's funny. I don't really remember getting started. I just remember always being.
Right.
I think I was about 4 years old, and I walked up to a piano and I hit a note, and I kind of instinctively understood right then how music kind of worked. The structure of it, and then I just realized that making music is just this really wonderful creative process. And then I think I was probably about 5 or 6 when I saw this kid in my school. He was about 9. He was playing an electric guitar, and it was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And I just said, "Okay, that's it. That's what I want."
That's a great way to get into it, though.
Yeah, it was great. And I was a teenager in the 70s, so I was really into all those really great progressive rock bands like, Led Zeppelin and Queen and Jethro Tull and Deep Purple and Black Sabbath, all that great stuff.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Well, and I wanted to ask, because you talked about how you got started, but when is that moment, though, that you decided that this was exactly what you were meant to do? It wasn't going to be being a physicist who was working on a project called The Stillness in Motion. You wanted to be a musician.
I basically took a physicist to complete it. It's funny because I just can't really, there was never a point where I made a decision because there was never an option, you know what I mean? It was always, well, this is what I like. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't have any real expectations, but I really like this.
Right.
And every time I listened to music or I played music or I composed something, it was just like a freedom, just like a safe little treasure chest or something. It's kind of hard to explain. Everybody has that little place that just feels really good, and it's always been music for me. It's never been anything else, really.
Right. Well, and I always love asking this question, even though we usually get that same answer, is because, it is kind of that one thing where, for musicians like us, we just knew it from the start. It's really hard to pinpoint an exact moment, but it is kind of interesting, though, every once in a while you get someone who says, like, oh, well, I guess this one exact moment was that moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I can pinpoint various exact moments where I had sort of what it was a clarity of what I wanted to do. Like when I heard West Side Story when I was like 9 or 8, I knew I wanted to compose music. But then when I heard Led Zeppelin, I just was like, that's it. I want to play rock guitar.
Nice.
So there was like defining moments, but it was always within the musical. It was never art or business or history.
Right.
He had relative interests in those things, but whenever it came to music, it was like,
Was there any specific Led Zeppelin song that brought you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
Did you ever
Which
hear
one?
Did you ever hear Heartbreaker on Led Zeppelin 2?
Yeah.
And that was it. When I heard that guitar solo, I was like, that's it. Sorry, that's it.
You know what's so funny about that? For me, it was just the opening riff. The moment I heard that opening riff, I was like, man, this song is badass.
Yeah, man, it's bad. It's bad. And Black Dog, too.
Yes.
That's one thing I loved about Led Zeppelin and still love about Led Zeppelin is it's just the beginnings of their songs. They get you hooked right away. It's like some artists, it takes you like to the middle of the song and then you go, oh man, I am really digging this. With Zeppelin, man, you just get it right from the beginning. Yeah,
the energy they captured and those riffs were just like monoliths, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Really beautiful.
And now, actually, about your playing, I did have a couple questions, and then I wanted to get to some of the projects you worked on. But there were a couple things that I've always been curious about this, because I've noticed for you, you have a really unique style, but you also have a really unique form of vibrato that you do. Most people just kind of vibrate the string up and down or left and right, but you kind of go in like a circular type of motion. Is there a reason for that, or you just always did that?
It looks sexy. Well, first of all, I'm impressed that you recognize that, and it was something that I developed. There was kind of like a practical approach to it because classical vibrato kind of goes up and down in a vertical motion, and it pushes on the string and it makes it flat a little bit, and then when you pull on the string, it makes it a little sharp. So that's true vibrato. The side-to-side vibrato is like natural note, sharp, natural note, sharp, natural note. So I wanted to do something because classical vibrato, it doesn't get rough enough. You can't really grind with it. So I developed that circular vibrato that has a little bit of push on the string. So the note actually goes natural, sharp, natural, flat, natural, sharp. So it's a real vibrato. And it was just something I just kind of looked at and put the practical screws to. And I thought it looked very elegant. I thought it looked smooth. I used to practice in the mirror, naked. And, how you practice to be a rock star, I guess. But,
I was going to say, is there any other way to practice?
Yeah, right. No, I would practice. I'd watch my hands, and I would kind of imagine how I wanted it to look. And you can kind of shape your playing by doing that, and you see when it looks kind of weird and odd and when it sounds odd, and I would just work on it and keep watching until it looked as elegant and as effortless as I could get it.
Right.
And
nice.
Yeah.
Well, that's really interesting because, another comment I was going to bring up is this is one of the reasons why I absolutely love watching you perform live is because not only is the music, really amazing and really well put together, but the shows are put together really well also. And I've noticed, and this actually is really interesting because of this, because I noticed you go out of your way to make sure not only is the show really great in terms of performance and energy, but also, you make sure your outfits are really, like they fit the performance, the stage is set up nice. So it's kind of interesting how, the ins and outs, it's all show and the art form as opposed to just being on stage.
Yeah, it was one of the things that was really attractive to me about a live performance is, all the elements. I really responded when I was younger to stage performance, but there was always a need for me to have some real musical value too. So as the desire to be the best performer I could be evolved, things like, what can I do to make the show interesting on a dynamic level, on a appearance level, a visual level, a performance level, a musical level. And, I just try to do the best I can with the tools I have to make it as interesting on all those levels as it can be. And I like things like changing clothes. It doesn't hamper the music. There's still the intense musicality that we push each other to perform within. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about how the audience felt when they walked away. That's what you're there for.
Exactly.
It's a wonderful responsibility, to be able to serve that way and to just imagine, how do I want people to feel when they leave? You know?
Exactly.
And the thing is I try not to take it so seriously.
Yeah.
I try not to take ourselves so seriously, and then that lightens things up and let people feel that.
Well, and it's like they say, as long as the audience is listening, then for the love of God, it's going to be a great show. Knee slapper.
That's if you're an animal.
Right? I didn't think of that one.
Yeah.
But that was a good one. But
we can go on and on that.
I know, right? And one last question I wanted to ask about your style and stuff like that, and then I wanted to get to the projects, is, another thing that I've noticed, and this is just about, again, the art form of it. Why the handle on the guitar? I've always been curious about this. What did you just decide one day that you wanted to have your guitar double as a suitcase, or it just looked cool?
Well, it's funny. Back when I designed that guitar, it was over 30 years ago.
Right.
And I wanted to create a guitar that was, because I was finding certain limitations with techniques I was reaching for with the standard guitars like Strats and Les Pauls. And so I designed this super Strat that sort of fit my idiosyncrasies. And I knew that there was a lot of elements to it that were just very practical, and I kind of felt would be interesting to other guitar players. And it's remarkable. It's actually a miracle, astonishing how the success of that guitar has shaped, the rock landscape, because it became the gem. It became the gem guitar. I mean, it transcended me as Steve Vai the artist, because the guitar itself was bigger than me in a sense, because it had elements that other musicians were very interested in, even if they weren't interested in me. I mean, the cutaways, the pickup configuration, the fret, the amount of frets, the whammy bar, floating, all these little elements that were just kind of simple to me. And then, the adding of the seventh string, was a big one, because, these days it's like 8 and 9 strings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the handle came about because at the end of the day, I just thought, you know what? I know that a lot of these elements are probably going to be maybe lifted or borrowed, but no one would ever put a handle in their guitar. So let me, I thought, what can I do that's just a little tweak, a little bizarre, sort of a little like my personality? And it's really cool because you can grab it and flip it around, and
right. Well, and that's such an awesome reasoning, just because no one would think to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and do it.
So I'll go ahead and do it. And I was right.
Well, and that guitar has become such a legendary guitar. I mean, it's inspired, like you said, it's inspired so many other things, and it's inspired so many different shapes of guitars, styles. It also inspired me to put the Evolution pickup in one of my guitars. And it was,
right on.
Yeah. And it's also, I like the fact that it's one of those guitars. You go into the store, you look on the shelves, you see that guitar, and it stands out. You right away that that's that guitar. Yeah, and it's lower end model without the handle is the RG, and it's the go-to metal guitar for over a decade now, and it's done so well. It's really a blessing. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break to listen to a clip from Intro/Racing the World off Steve Vai's Stillness in Motion, Vai Live in LA. But we will be right back. I did want to move on here. I wanted to talk about these projects that you've got going on right now. Now, you actually just recently released a CD and DVD of your show, Stillness in Motion, which we've made, a joke about earlier for fun. And, but one thing I wanted to ask you about this is actually the behind the scenes that you did, because I understand there's actually like a 3.5 hour special on the DVD with, the whole journey going through, 50 countries? And you edited that yourself. Could you tell us a bit about that? Yeah, we had a gig. The whole tour was about 2 years long. Wow. And we did like 253 shows in 52 countries. Damn. We went around the world twice, basically.
And I really wanted to do that to get deeper into the instrument and the band and the focus of the audience. And on our 49th show, we found ourselves in L.A., and AXS wanted to film the show for a live broadcast. And part of the deal was that they would give me all the tapes. So I got this beautiful 9-camera shoot, and I edited it together. And it's a nice show, and it only took probably a couple of weeks to edit it. But then I got this idea, because I'm always trying to kind of add something that's unique, at least unique to anything I've done before.
Right.
So I came up with this idea with such an incredible touring routing in all the countries we went to. I mean, we played in places that I was told no American artists have played, like in Siberia, places in Siberia.
Wow.
And we did like Japan twice. I was in China 3 times, and all the way. We were a month in Russia. We started in Vladivostok, where you can kind of see Japan, and then we just worked our way all the way through Siberia and all the way through Russia to the Ukraine. And we were actually in the Ukraine when the war was happening.
Oh, no.
And, yeah, we got out two days after we got out. They closed the borders, declared war, and shut down the airport.
Kidding.
So we were pretty lucky.
Talk about a good time to leave.
Yeah.
I know. So then I thought, and we have such a good time on tour. You know, the band is like a family, and we're just always laughing. There's no drama. It's really uplifting. We love touring. We love playing. We always have the feeling of gratitude for being out there. So I thought, what would it be like to have like a tour diary of sorts that had a little snippet, maybe even just a photo or a video from each city, each place we went. So I started collecting everything that anybody had from the tour, from the band, from the crew, myself, my wife, my kids. And then I went online and found stuff for cities I didn't have, and I created this monumental tour diary, and it's 3 hours and 40 minutes. I just couldn't help myself. And I think for anybody that's really interested in what it's like to follow a band all around the world like that, it's quite a nice peek into that life. And you get to see anybody that's interested in seeing who I really am and normally, it's very, very revealing, and it's really fun and uplifting. And it was like there's, I think, 30 or 40 minutes of us in Tel Aviv, where we went to Jerusalem. It's really interesting and really great.
But what lessons did you take away after such a tour and just from doing all this stuff that you've been doing so far?
Well, I love touring because I love people watching. I really enjoy people, especially different countries, different cultures, different colors, different flavors. The cultures are so different. People are so different. You just don't understand what the rest of the world is like by going to school in America and learning history.
Right.
Not until you're eating a pizza in Warsaw or something, or on a tour through the ghetto, or, riding your bicycle through the streets of Kazakhstan or something.
Right.
It's really... And you meet people and you talk to them. There's just such great diversity. And the diversity is beautiful, and that's what I love. That's what I take away. I take away from it that we think that other cultures and people are really different. But when you sit and talk face to face with somebody that might presumably be on the other end of the spectrum of who you think they are because of what you learned or what you saw in school, you find out that they're people with the same kind of emotional dynamics as you. It's really wonderful. It brings you closer to the world, and that's what I love about touring. That's what I take away most of all.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Well, and actually, Anna and I recently moved from Los Angeles here to Iceland, actually, where Anna is from, and it's actually one of those things that I found fascinating as someone who lived in America my entire life to now living in Iceland. I agree. The cultures are different. Certain things are different, but it's really interesting being around different people and seeing the different things that go on, the different ways that people live. It's not like it's a completely different world, but it is a different country and it's different elements and such.
Yeah, but the basic...
Yeah, especially Iceland. Sorry?
But the basic things are sort of the same. This is why I love that you point that out, because I've met people from all over the world and sort of, I sometimes forget to ask about all the cultural things because it just comes so natural to me. If I like a person, I like a person. It doesn't really matter where they're from. You know what I mean? Like we find some mutual interest in something, you know?
Yeah, and I tell you, one of my favorite stops on the tour was Iceland. I go to Iceland.
Nice.
You know, I've been there a bunch of times. I've been going to Iceland since the 80s. And that country is such a rich country in culture. And, you know, they're so with it. They're practical people. They're just really with it. It's there's something about Iceland when you're there. You just feel alive. You know, we went to the Blue Lagoon. And we got video footage of it in the space between the notes.
Oh,
nice.
We were at the fish spa, and I'm putting my feet in with the little fish that chew on the skin on your feet.
Nice.
Yeah, Iceland is a must for people who really want to feel different cultures around the world. It's unique.
Today's episode of Entertainment Drive-Thru is brought to you by Audible.com. Audible.com is offering listeners a free audiobook of your choice and a free 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/edrivethru and choose from over 180,000 audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's just that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/edrivethru. That's audibletrial.com/edrivethru and get started today. And now I do want to now talk about the Vi Academy, because this is actually something that even though I can't go, I'm so excited, and I feel like I'm just gonna like pretend I'm there. But,
yeah, you'll be punished.
Yeah, but no, one thing I absolutely love about this is, this is one of the things that made me really excited that you're doing this was actually I attended a program several years ago called the Guitar Workshop Plus, which I think you were at that at one point, right?
I may have been. I do those kind of appearances at those workshops and guitar schools.
Right.
They're popping up all over the place. Yeah.
Yeah, but one of the things that I absolutely love about yours, and this is something that especially what you did last year and what you're doing this year, it's amazing because you're not just going to do like a few clinics. Like it seems like normally the celebrities or the big names, they show up and they just do like a clinic or they do a Q&A, but you're really going into actually teaching and actually jamming with people. And I like that last year it was kind of about how to get your music recorded and released and all of that stuff. Now it's about the design of the guitar and how the guitar is made. And I guess I really just explained it, but could you explain it a little bit, a little bit more? Maybe get to the stuff I didn't touch on.
Well, it's really one of the great developments in the music community is these schools that are coming up now that can actually teach people guitar and rock and the kinds of things that they're really interested in. Because in the past, it was jazz or classical. And other than that, you were done, So there's all these great schools and camps that have been coming up. And I've been requested to do these, invited to do these, but I always kind of held off because, just like you said, I just didn't want to do the conventional kind of show up, jam, here's me playing. I wanted to bring something special. I really enjoy the teaching process. I've done it my whole life. I started giving lessons when I was like 15. And you learn so much when you're teaching, So then I came up with this idea to, because the camps were 4 days, 3 or 4 days, and they're in these beautiful locations and almost like, they're luxury resort surroundings this year in Vail, Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
But I wanted to introduce something unique. And as you mentioned last year, besides all of the jamming, because we jam every night, and I do play with every, person that comes. We had Jeff Skunk Baxter and Vernon Reed and Guthrie Govan, and they gave classes. But the gist of the first part of the camp basically was what you had mentioned. It was about song evolution. So there was a class on how to develop and how to find inspiration and for writing music, and then we wrote a song, and then there was classes on teaching people how to protect their intellectual property by starting publishing companies. It demystified that whole process that is usually very intimidating for people, but it's really easy, and you have to do it. you're a songwriter, you really need to have a publishing company,
Right.
and you need to know how to register your songs. And it's really easy, and it doesn't really cost anything.
Well, and it's all
So
this.
we went through that.
Oh, I was going to
Sorry?
say, it's all the things that I feel like these are all the things that usually people have to learn through experience. But, you know, and no school really goes into it that much is what I found. And that's why I think it's so great that you're doing this.
Yeah, it's funny how educational curriculums are kind of odd. It's like you grow up going through school, but they never really teach you what insurance is, how to pay
Right.
taxes,
Thank
what
you.
mortgage is. You know, all these things you really have to know.
All these things, I never get that. I've gone through school my entire life, and I feel like the basic things that you need to live, they're not taught.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell?
They don't
Of course
teach
we
you that.
screw
They don't
up.
teach you
We're
that-
not taught.
Yeah, this amount of money needs to go towards the food, and this, you know, savings looks like this, and this is what health insurance is, and this is what.
Exactly.
You don't get any of that.
This is what
Taxes.
401k
They don't say
is.
anything about taxes, and if you don't
Right.
pay your taxes, you go to jail.
Exactly.
You know, what up with that? So this is
Crazy.
kind of like my way in the music business
Yeah.
of bringing things that you just don't learn elsewhere.
Yeah, and I like that this year you're focusing on the craft of the guitar, you know, because that's one thing also, and I've noticed, you know, especially with your style and with other guitar styles, you know, it seems like you really focus on exactly how the guitar is made, and that goes into what you do on it. And I find that, you know, a lot of, you know, it's not really taught very much, and a lot of people don't really see the importance of it, but it really does help to know, you know, why your guitar does what it does.
Yeah, it can open up another whole avenue of discovery. And I know for someone like myself, there was no way I learned any of that through the years. It took years before I started to understand that this kind of wood, we're talking about the class, the camp this year.
Right.
It's about the guitar itself. And in it, you know, I have experts coming in and giving classes on different kinds of woods, what they sound like, how they react with the woods in the neck of the guitar, the fretboard, how they have different sounds, how
Right.
pickups work. I've got Larry DiMarzio teaching a class. I mean, the guy himself that designed the first replacement pickup in the 70s, he's an icon.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's teaching a class on how pickups work. Most kids don't know how pickups work and,
Right.
and how they affect, you know, the tone of the guitar. And so when you understand this stuff, it just in a few days you get it all.
Right.
You can be more selective on the kinds of guitar that you want to either build or buy, and that's more suited to you. Because now you know, oh, this is a maple neck, and I know that maple sounds like this, and this is the kind of sound that suits me. So these are the things, and much, much more. And on
Nice.
top of that, we've got Eric Johnson and Sonny Landreth that are going to be jamming their butt off and giving classes. It's really nice. I really enjoy doing it.
Well, and I have to do one quick shout out actually to anyone listening in who, like myself and Anna, went to the Musicians Institute. Stig Matheson would also be there, and he is
Yeah.
he's a hell of a musician.
Yeah, he's going to be teaching a class on single note improv and chord improv and stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we're really looking forward to that. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And now, before we're getting close to the end here, but before we go, I wanted to ask a couple questions here that we normally ask on the show. You know, so far with your career, you know, as you've gone through it, what's been one of the biggest pieces of advice that's really stuck with you that you would pass on to people just getting started?
Well, the major things that I picked up were never really advice. It was stuff that I witnessed. And the thing that I realize is the most powerful element in your career, in any career that you have or choose, is to find the thing that's most exciting to you, the thing that feels really good when you think about doing it, and something that feels natural to you, where there's no pressure, you know, that just unfolds in your mind. It's something that feels creative. And
Right.
for me, it was always finding a riff that I'd never heard before. And that was that's how I developed my style, you know, just gluing them together.
Nice.
But as far as advice and somebody saying something to me, I'll tell you one, and it may sound kind of silly, but it was very powerful for me. Well, there was, you know, I still can't believe how lucky I was to have been able to work with Frank Zappa for
Yeah.
6 years. Virtually every day something was said that was incredibly good advice. But I remember the first time I was like 18 years old, and I was talking to Frank, and I said, can you give me some advice, and being a musician. And I was expecting this long kind of esoteric answer that you have to play the music, that be real and all this stuff. But Frank never said one extra word that was unnecessary.
Nice.
And I remember he just looked at me and said, keep your publishing. And I was like, what is publishing? And he gave me the phone number to an attorney, and I bought an hour of this attorney's time, and he taught me all about publishing. And then I hired him to set up sub-publishing companies for me around the world.
Wow.
And this is before I ever had a record deal or anything.
Wow.
Right.
And that was the single most, probably economically, the smartest thing I'd ever done in my career.
And I have to say, actually, because you brought up Frank, one of my absolute favorite stories of yours is actually there's a video of you talking about the audition process for Frank Zappa and how it just kept getting progressively harder and harder. And then at the end, he just asked you to do something that you simply couldn't do at the time and didn't know anyone that could do it. And his response was, well, I hear Linda Ronstadt is looking for a new guitar player.
Yeah, that was Frank.
And
He'd push you until you scream uncle.
Right. And last question before we go is I wanted to ask you, because we are in that technology age where there are resources everywhere, and other than Vi.com and ViAcademy.com, what are some good resources that you would recommend that anyone in this line of work should at least know about these?
Google.
Yes.
It's funny, but that's actually a really good...
You go to Google, and all you have to do is think of a phrase that you want, I would like to know every scale in the music, history books, and you just type in, what are all musical scales, something, and there's virtually nothing you can't find on Google.
Oh, yeah.
Right. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it'll take you to a website that is probably... going to be offering things that you're interested in. The biggest piece of advice I can get is just find what's interesting for you and just kind of take that thread and pull it. And Google is a great way to unravel it.
Right. Well, unfortunately, we are down to the end of our interview. But before we go, where are places that our listeners can find out more information about you and the projects you've got going on?
Vi.com is a good one. And, my Facebook page, that's always good. And, that's pretty much it.
All right.
And there's a ton of stuff going on. I've got master classes coming. I got shows coming up. I'm in the studio. I have a 25th anniversary Passion and Warfare record coming out early next year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congrats on that.
Yeah, it's great. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and for anyone interested in the Vi Academy, that's simply viacademy.com. And thank you so much, Steve, for taking the time and doing this interview. It's been an absolute honor talking to you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. You guys have been very generous and kind. Thanks.
Thank you. And for more information on Steve Vai and the podcast, go to entertainmentdrivethru.com and subscribe on iTunes. Like and follow us on our Facebook at facebook.com/entertainmentdrivethru and our Twitter and Instagram at eDriveThru.
Hey, folks, this is Steve Vai, and you've been listening to Entertainment Drive-Thru.